Good afternoon. This is Dr. Dennis L. Woodard Sr. This is the I Will Restore podcast. I am again coming to you to speak with you about the aspect of what it is that we're seeking to do in 2021. For me, it is a very exciting time. Today is January the 25th, 2021. And it's a time that I believe has all kinds of possibilities for anyone really that is living in this day and time. I recognize, of course, that there is a pandemic that is going on throughout the world. There are all kinds of things that are happening in regard to our financial situation, economic situation. There is a situation, of course, that we are talking about, and I'd like for you to just really email us at info@iwillrestore.com, because this is something that is an opportunity for each of us to grow. That includes myself as well. There is this statement when it comes to a person's ability to bring about just tremendous change in their life. Remember that we have been talking about this aspect of that a person's consciousness is the only reality, is the statement. And then the statement in the Bible, of course, is that it's done unto you as you believe. And other statements that say all things are possible. And the idea that there is a kingdom of God, a kingdom of heaven, that is within us. And we have this opportunity, therefore, to, by a change of thinking, by a change of mindset, by a change of focus, to bring about real change in the earth, to bring about real change in our lives. And therefore, this is the best time, one of the best times that there will ever be, in order to test this particular idea, that indeed that changing the way that we look at the world, in other words, believing something, brings about real change. Now, I think the challenge is whether or not we believe it to the point of actually feeling it in our bones, on the inside of our bones. That's really the challenge. But the thing about this particular science, as it was called by individuals such as Ernest Holmes, is one of the individuals that I've studied. Ernest Holmes called it the science of mind. Another individual, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, called it positive thinking. Dr. Robert Schuller from years ago called it possibility thinking. And there are others that have called it various other names. And they've called the whole process, Neville Goddard called it the use of the imagination and the power of awareness. And all of these things are the same things. And that's the item that I want to really emphasize in regard to my particular way of looking at this. They're talking about the same thing, but it is a change in the way that an individual looks at life. It has to do with what you focus on, what grabs your attention, how you process the information that is coming into you, and how you actually send out or how you respond to any situation that you might encounter. And there's this aspect of looking towards spirit and believing again that all things are working together for my good. All things are working together for your good. And so this is the challenge that is involved in this particular situation in this year. Now, let me say it very clearly to anyone. These are not, what I'm talking about, at least, is not the aspect of somebody saying, well, I'm just going to believe and do absolutely nothing. This thing is just a hoax in regard to the coronavirus and all of that kind of stuff, or the work of the devil and all of this kind of stuff. Nope. That's not what we're talking about here. Not what I'm talking about, at least in regard to that. Yes, you should go and make sure that you go to the doctor. Yes, you should make sure that if there is a vaccine that is available to you, that you should make up your own mind, both in regard to going to the doctor, both in regard to whether or not you do the vaccine or anything else that your doctor may say is advantageous for you. So you are making your own decisions. Please do not go through any kind of changes and say that you were advised from the I Will Restore podcast, or you were advised by Dr. Dennis L. Waters Sr., or anybody else that might be associated with me in any kind of way, that you should do this, that, or the other in regard to your particular life. That is a decision that you're making on your own in regard to this. This is not medical advice in any stretch of the imagination. And when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to the practices and things like that, these are not dogmatic statements. I never want it to be dogmatic statements. Why? Because each person is an individual. Each person is an individual. One person, when it comes to meditation, they may do something and it takes them, say, 30 minutes a day on a continuous basis to bring about something, and they're able to do that 30 minutes. Another person may do 5, another person may do an hour, another person may do 5 hours. Whatever it may be for the individual, that person must figure that out. And why is that good? Because we are not robots. We're not robots. Thank God for that. I don't want to be a robot in any sense of the imagination. I don't want to be a robot. I don't want you to be a robot. No, we are human beings, and that's what makes all of this so wonderful in regard to who we are. And so when we talk about this aspect of consciousness, the idea is that as humans, we have consciousness, we have awareness, and that as a result of that, there are things that we're able to do that the most advanced machines or even artificial intelligence cannot as of yet do. Cannot as of yet you do. And this is very, very important. Now, understand that machines or artificial intelligence, they are wonderful, wonderful in this day and time. And it's given us the opportunity, again, if we make use of them properly, they can enhance what it is as they are enhancing what it is that we're able to do. And so please, 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 when it comes to the coronavirus and what we're dealing with, when it comes to our economic situation, there are parts of this that we absolutely must do. And so in this day and time, what I'm saying in regard to this is that we have an opportunity to actually look at the time that we're living in, and then to, by virtue of what we do with our own thinking process, and it must be thinking. I'm reading individuals like Emerson, and Emerson was someone that read people like Plato and Plotinus, I think is a pronunciation of the name, and he read these individuals as well as others and correspondent with some of the greatest minds of his day. And as a result of that, you will see in Emerson going along with Plato and understanding Plato to a point, but then arriving at a point where he seemingly goes farther than Plato had gone previously in regard to Plato's thinking. And it is a marvelous jump that he does in regard to what Plato had written, and then Emerson just takes another leap. And that's what thinking does for an individual. And I encourage anyone that wants to understand what we're talking about here is to, if it's at your level of understanding, to actually go to the point that you're reading or reading along with a person like Emerson, and that whole piece in regard to that. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing now, is because I recognize that there are levels of this whole thing of consciousness. There are levels of consciousness that we're working with. And in a great respect, we're seeking to work with a number of levels, if you will. And we've got the service set up at a place called Patreon, I believe is Patreon, if I'm saying that correctly. I got a service that's set up, and I'll get the website where I'm going to be posting this as soon as I can understand it. Perhaps you could even help me out in regard to this, because on the one hand, we can talk about things that are just at the level, I call it principles, policies, and practices. principles have to do with perhaps one word. That word can unfold itself. It can be unfolded, and you'll see that it contains both the policies and the practices. Practices are, for me, they are basically things that you do, and they can be practices, can be a ritual. It is when we come to practices, you can call those disciplines that a person is involved with doing, and each person, each school, if you will, or each denomination, if you will, each house, if you will, has a set of practices. Each person that has gone through a particular experience where they've arrived at a point of maturity. They had a specific set of steps by which they arrived at that point. That particular set of steps is a set of practices that they went through, and that's because you've got to be disciplined in order to do this stuff on a continuous basis. And the reason why you want to do it on a continuous basis is because, as I said before, it's not magic, it's mystery. You do it so that you have something where you look at it, and each day those steps are the same, and you're able to see this is the same, this is the same, this is the same, this is the same, so that you have a routine. And the reason you need this particular routine is so that when there is something that's out of the ordinary, that you're able to note that it's out of the ordinary, because you've seen it, say, for 7 days, and it's been just like it's always been. It was the same for those first 7 days, the same way it was that first day. But then on that 8th day, something is different. There's a revelation that takes place. There's a voice that's heard. There's something that's seen that you had not seen before. And you know that something is different at that moment. But you would not have known that if you had not done those first 7 days. That's vital to understand in regard to that. And so the practices are important, and whatever they may be. When we talk of those, we have a number of practices that we work with in regard to those. And I am thankful because some of those I was doing previously and doing in such a way that I was able to do them, and I got results in regard to that. I've seen some marvelous things that have happened to me in life, and those things include, again, people that I've prayed for, and I've seen individuals get well. I've seen individuals stop, what I call stop from dying, or delay their death date, so to speak. I've seen all of that, both in regard to my own situation in life, as I've shared before. 2017, recently, I believe it was. Actually, I know it was that I was in the hospital, had an occurrence, and when I was there in the hospital, the doctor offered to me, or actually encouraged me very much to have a particular procedure, and said if I did not have that particular procedure, that I could possibly walk out of the hospital and die shortly thereafter. And initially I said yes to that particular procedure, but then as I thought about it, I prayed about it, and I just simply said no. Well, I'm still alive, and this is 2021. But beyond that, let me tell you, I've served as pastor, or someone who's praying for an individual. And I remember this particular man, he was in the hospital. He had a heart attack, as we say. He sat in his home that particular day, and he was in his home pretty much from, let's say, from 8 o'clock till, let's say, around 2 o'clock or something to that effect. I don't remember exactly the time, but what I do remember is that I went to his home to visit him, and that he was in his house, in his chair, and he had a heart attack there. We got the medical personnel to put him in the hospital, take him to the hospital and everything. And then what took place is that while he was in the hospital, the doctors were telling him exactly what he needed to do. And this particular man was a postal carrier, and they told him that if he did not have certain things done for him, that he would never be able to drive his truck again, as we called it. And this was very special to him. And this particular man wanted to also travel to New Orleans. He wanted to go to Mardi Gras. He was a member of my church. He wanted to go to Mardi Gras. and his mother lived there. And this particular man said, "Nope, I'm not going to do this." And he stayed with that. He was adamant about that. Well, the day came one day when he, after having refused, he was going to leave the hospital. And as he was getting dressed that morning, he actually fell there in the hospital. And that was dangerous. If he had fallen in the way that he did and had not been in the hospital, he possibly could have died then. And the doctor reminded him of that fact. But he was in the hospital and he fell and had some kind of loss of consciousness there in the hospital. And because he was there, the doctors were able to attend to him there. And again, they said to him the importance of him actually having the procedure done. And what he did was he still refused. I'm not going to do that. But he was clear that he wanted to go on his trip. He wanted to go to New Orleans. That was his home. He wanted to go to Mardi Gras. That was what he wanted to do. He wanted to see his mother. And years later, after a bit of recovery, this man actually did go to New Orleans. He did go to Mardi Gras. He did see his mother. He did drive his truck. He did all of that. He did all of that. That's what prayer did for him. He had a practice. He didn't just start the day he went in the hospital. He had a practice before. And we had numerous conversations in regard to that. Again, I've seen what I'm talking about take place. I know what it is in regard to the funds when a person is moving from one level to another level of prosperity. I know what that is. I've seen it. I've seen it not only for myself, I've seen it for other individuals as well. And so I know it's not magic. And so when we speak of practices, there's this aspect of what we call visualization, of visioning, if you will, where you see a goal or an objective that you want to actually achieve in life. And I say that you go through the whole 4Ds in regard to this. You go through the whole aspect of what it is that you desire, what it is that is that it is definite. You've written it down, desire. You see it. You know what it is that you want. Then you write it down. You make it definite. You can have a vision board or some other kind of way that you make it more concrete. And then we say it's divinely intended for you. That's vital. It can be a dream, but some kind of way you know that it is something that the universe would have you to have. And so this aspect of is definite. And then it's divinely intended for you. Intended for you. You are not taking it from anyone. It's being created by you. And so there is an abundance. That's the thing about this. The law of attraction is not dealing with the idea. Emerson dealt with this as well when it came to compensation, when he looked at it. Compensation is not every time one person gets something, another person loses something. See, it doesn't work like that. As a result, because God is all powerful, God is all present, God is all knowing. And so as a result of that, we also, because we are in God, we are able to also bring about change in the very universe itself, working in harmony with God. And God has all things. Remember, the cattle upon the hilltops belong to God. All the elements and everything else belongs to God. And God is able, through working in us, working through us, and working as us, to create in the same way that God created from the very beginning. And so that which we need, that which we desire, God has promised to supply. And God does not have to rob anybody or take from anybody in order to give to us. And this is the marvelous thing about this, is that it is created by virtue of our knowing that we already have it, because God says, before you call, I will answer. And so this whole aspect of that is divinely intended for us. So we don't take it from anybody else. It's created by us as a result of consciousness. And so this whole aspect, divinely intended. And part of that process by which we do that is, as I said before, this aspect of visualization or visioning, depending, it's up to you as to how you might call it. And this whole aspect of that is that you are seeing it. The things, the way it's articulated in the Bible is that the things that are seen were not made by things that yet appear. And so out of nothing you're created. creating something. Out of nothing, you're creating something because you see it. And the recently, about 5 days ago, a young lady, I think her name Amanda Gorman, I believe, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. If not, and forgive me, but she said this aspect of light, if we have courage to see it, light, if we have courage to be it. And so as a result of that, what we're talking about is that what you see, you be. What you see, you be. What you see, you be. And this whole aspect, it takes courage to see it. It takes courage to be it. And so this aspect is that as we change from level to level, we be, then we do, then we have. We see, we be, then we do, then we have. That's the process by which we go through in order to bring about change in our lives and in the world. And so this process, the fourth dimensional, is our seeing, this use of visualization, this use of visioning that we go through in order to do that. So that's one of the practices. And then the affirmations have to do with what we call affirmations, positive affirmation, is that we know that God intends only good for us. So we affirm that we have already received the good. The good is already ours. It's already ours. So we used to at one point call this the ABCs of prayer, where it's ask, believe, and then return thanks. And so we claimed it. It wasn't saying that we would get it. It was saying that, well, thank you, we already have it. So ask, believe, claim by return thanks, that we already have it. There's something wonderful about this as well. One of the individuals, I don't mind telling people that for a period of time that I was just simply reading certain books, but one of the books that I was reading is written by a lady named Ellen G. White. And in a book called The Ministry of Healing, she had this particular statement which says, it is true that thoughts and words are encouraged as we give them utterance. In other words, if you're sick and keep saying you're sick, you'll remain sick. And you say, well, where does she get that from? Well, let me keep on going. So she is saying that thoughts follow words. So if you say you're sick, you get sicker. If you say you're sick, you get sicker. Just take that out. If you say you're poor, you get poor. You say you're poor, you get poor. Consciousness is the only reality. You say you're poor, you get poor. And so, but then she said basically turn that around. Say you're well, you'll begin to feel better. Say you will have more. Now that's an interesting statement, because when Jesus Christ says to the person that has, more will be given. Same statement. The person that has, more will be given. See, when you get to the point of the principle, you begin to understand how this works. And that's what's important, is that the moment you see it, you begin to be it. The person that has, more is given. And so when you see it and you be it, you are it. Courage. If you see the light, then you be the light. She didn't mention on what level this was. That's what we call fourth dimensional. We live in third dimensional, fourth dimensional, higher level. And this whole aspect, well, do you see that anywhere else? Well, of course. When the architect builds a house, think about that. The architect builds a house. The architect really doesn't build a house. Architect sees a house. And then the architect designs a house. And then the builders build the house. That's the thing that takes place. And the architect many times is not the first person that sees the house. The architect listens to the person that desires the house. And then the architect, listening to that individual, then comes forth and says, based on what I've heard you say, and then looking at the various rules, if you will, principles, if you will, looks at those and says, this is what you're saying, that will fit in line with everything else that is already in line with everything else. And these are the rules by which we've got to work with in order to bring what you have said so that it manifests in this sphere. Now that's heavy in regard to itself. That's powerful in regard to itself. But that's why we talk about this aspect of it takes time. It takes time. It takes time for this all to play itself out. And so we encourage people to practice. This is not magic. It's really scientific that you have prayer, affirmative prayer. You have visualization. You have meditation. You have sacred service, so that you're not just someone that's coming to the table and taking from the table and not giving anything to the table, to the community. You have giving that goes along with that. Some people think, even in regard to what you're receiving here, in regard to this space, that you is just taking, and they often do not understand that just to come here to this space, that we're doing, one should also give to this space. One should give to this space. And again, send us the email at info@iwillrestore.com, and then we can communicate with you, because we know that we're reaching more and more people. We know that we've been doing that for years. And yes, we've seen individuals. We've got individuals that we coach. My coaching process, been trained in regard to coaching, both leadership development and coaching. We got individuals that have come on, and it's taken us some time to take them through a process of learning and everything like that. And one of my coaching clients, talked to him the other day, and it was just wonderful. I can remember when we first started working with him, it was something else. We had to work through a number of things and just reconcile some things that was going on in his mind, in his heart. But hallelujah, he was telling me that he's working and making the six figures a year, and that he's just reaching out and growing, and how that feels and everything like that, and said he's living the best year of his life. The best year of his life. It feels so good as he gets the principles down, and he's looking forward to the seven figures and just moving forward and everything like that, and how he's helping other people, because this works. This works. And we're doing this with more and more individuals. It's a process. It's a process. And so I want to encourage you again that you look at 2021, because what we've shared with you, we know works. We have seminars, webinars, teachings. You can actually go and get some books there at Amazon. We open up an Amazon store that's there at Amazon. You can see it. You can see it there. I believe that we've listed as the store that you'll see. It says collection, I believe, there, and there are, I believe, maybe about 5 books that we've listed there. They are written by Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith. The book, The Answer Is You, is a very powerful book. We do a teaching in regard to that. Another book is the Spiritual Liberation. We do our teaching in regard to that. And all of these concepts that we're talking about here, those are also included in the book as well. And then we talk with you about how to actually practice this, because hearing it one time oftentimes is not absolutely enough. And reading it even is difficult for many people to actually put it in place and get it. It takes a community of individuals actually talking back and forth. That's why people have coaches. As I said, I've taken training through the John Maxwell Group, and then also at Walden University, taking training, industrial organizational psychology, with a specialty in leadership development and executive coaching. And so that's qualification. And I've got about 40 years or so of ministry, serving as a minister. And so all of those things we bring to the table in order to serve you in regard to that. And then the other books that we have a book there, a kit there that's called Visioning by Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith as well. My particular book is the books that I have there. We have books that are in Kindle that are working with visualization visualization. And we have the initial book that at a very low price. The Kindle book at 99 cents. Very easy for you to get that book with 99 cents. It's by Dr. Dennis L. Waters Sr. That would be me. And it says Visualization for Success. We got a very low entry point for that particular item because we want it to be available for an individual absolutely free. Absolutely free. We just wanted it at 99 cents so that the person would be able to get that book and download it. And then as you listen to these particular programs and are able to actually carry them out and then practice, as we said, those practices. And then the more you understand the principles, the better it will be for you in regard to that. And then, of course, as we talk, we can share with you the spiritual strategic life planner, and you write your plan down. Remember, make it definite. And then also, as I said, as you listen to the podcast and everything like that, because this is really about you. This is about your 2021. This is about your life 5 years from now. This is about your life 10 years from now. And then you'll see that really you have a freedom and you have a power that is God-given. 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 And it does not matter where you are living now. It does not matter what your situation is now. Because remember, consciousness is the only reality. You create your life. And you can begin from the only place that you can begin from. You can begin from where you are right now. And dream your dream. Visualize your dream. See the vision. And then begin to be intentional in that vision, no matter what the physical, the third dimensional reality that you may be dealing with. This world, as they say, is just a shadow, and we're not talking about you dying and then coming to a new world like that. It's dying to this third dimensional reality. It's not dying from it, so to speak. It's dying to it and being born again. What the Bible says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. This is what we're talking about. And so we have all of these things that we're working with. And as I said, we've got a college or university or an institute, as we call it, Spirit Victory Praise Transformational Leadership Institute, in which we train you as to how to carry these principles forward into the third dimensional world. How you anchor yourself and are able to carry these principles forward into the third dimensional world. And it's called Spirit Victory Praise Transformational Leadership Institute, and we're all working together to bring that about. Right now I'm doing work on the websites that have to do with all of this, and we're getting individuals to work with us and bring those websites into a better, so they function better, they look better, all of these kinds of things. We've done them before. We've done all of this before and just did it on a local level before we had the internet and all those kinds of things. But now we want to do those in such a way that we're able to bring them forth. We have classes in regard to this as well. We've done a class. One of the favorite classes for me is called the Journey to Your Authentic Life. We've got that in a variety of settings. We've got the Hero's Journey to Become Your Authentic Self, and we've called it the Black Panther as a hero's journey to become your authentic self. And we can share all of that with you as well as to how you do that. But it's your journey. It's your journey. It's you becoming the person that God has directed you to be. So we are seeking to say all of that so that we can understand. Email us info@iwillrestore.com. Tell us how that we might be able to serve you. Tell us how that we might be able to help you, to benefit you, to empower you, to enrich you, to make life better. We've done so many things in the past, gone to Kenya previously, sent gifts and carloads of material to Kenya. books that we have to Kenya, my Steps of Christ study workbook to Kenya. We've done a number of things, and our intent is to benefit the world. Benefit the world. This that we have is so powerful, and it is so beneficial that we want, in the best way possible, to share it with the world. It's done wonders for me. I I've just been extremely blessed, and still am extremely blessed. Um, I just am. I thank you for listening to this. You'll hear more about the whole 5 sermon series of Neville Goddard and others, and there are some again that I'm reading. I can tell you about them. Whether that person is Ernest Holmes, whether that person is a fellow named Thomas Thurwood, and I hope we get to have that high level, higher levels of conversation in regard to that. We can go from the aspect of just simply taking this from the Word of God, and we just from the Bible, or from any sacred text. It's in all of them. This idea, these principles are in all of the sacred texts, and they are the same. They are the same ideas. They are the ones that were used by individuals like the Buddha. They are the same that were used by individuals like Muhammad, peace be upon him. And all of these, the Hindi religion and the Bhagavad Gita, is there. As a matter of fact, I've got a book that talks about how the principles are in all of these books and that kind of thing. At the base of the pyramid, remember that the practices are different. At the base of the pyramid, the policies a little bit different. The practices a lot different sometimes, but the principles, they're the same. Gravity is the same all over the world. And so I encourage you again, give us an email, info@iwillrestore. Join us, walk with us if this resonates with you. If this resonates with you, you don't have to. There's no there's no must do, there's no this is absolutely right for everybody. None of that is what we're talking about here. This has to do with the law of attraction. This has to do if this is right for you. It may be, it may not be. If it's right for you. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. If it's right for you, if this is right for you. And I'm taking some time in regard to that. Let me just continue with this a little bit. How do we know it's right for you? Let me share with you a little bit more. This is my heart to you. This is my heart to you. As a young person, much younger person, growing, I watched a set of television programs that were called Star Trek. This is, some people may not know it, is still on. It's a television program that's still on, being played. They got different versions of it: Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Next Generation, Star Trek Enterprise. You can watch this, but there's a way that I want you to think about the watching of it in regard to this. And this is not the way to watch it. There's no the way to watch it. I'm just saying a way to watch it. That's a little bit different. And this has to do with considering that what goes on inside of a person's mind in regard to this. And I'll talk with you about the hero's journey a little bit. The Star Trek has 3 main characters. This is a story about a voyage in space, and the movie or the television program, when it was first television program, had a theme song that says, or theme words. It says, "These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to search out new life," I believe. And then says to boldly go where no person has gone before. And then it has the three characters that are the main characters. They were Captain Kirk, um, Commander Spock, and then the Doctor, Dr. McCoy. Now, those characters are on a starship, as they call it, the starship. The starship could be considered the mind of a person. Captain Kirk could be considered the will or the decision-making part of a person. When he says energize, when he says that the ship is supposed to go at a certain speed, in a certain direction, that's where the ship went. That's what happened. He made that decision based on the input of two major officers. The first one was Spock. That was logic, thinking, logically thinking, a process of thinking. And the other one was the health of the individual. And part of that health was the emotional health of the individual. That had to do with Dr. McCoy. This is the way that I looked at it. The way that I looked at it. Now, I subconsciously looked at it that way. And if you look at the Star Trek movies and television shows, which are still on, there's a channel that I see called Heroes and Icons, I think. You can find that. If you look at it this way, you'll find the movie to be most interesting, television shows to be most interesting, and especially in the period that it was done. I believe that Star Trek is the first place that you have a interracial kiss that takes place. Remember, it's going where no person had been before. The kiss between William Shatner and Nicole, I forget what her last name was, maybe Nichols. At that point was the first interracial kiss that was shown on television. And there were a number of other things that were taking place in regard to that particular show. Groundbreaking, and still to this day, challenging ideas that are there. To move that further, there's another set of movies that came forth that were called Star Wars. Star Wars, when it initially comes out, there's a man called Joseph Campbell who wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Joseph Campbell was a student of a person named Carl Jung, and he was talking about, again, this aspect of Carl Jung was a psychiatrist who studied people all over the world and listened to their stories, and a fascinating subject in regard to himself. But Joseph Campbell wrote the book Hero with a Thousand Faces because in his studies and everything with Joseph Campbell in his travels, all with Carl Jung, they discovered that people were telling one story all over the world. And it involved this whole aspect of a hero character. And he called it The Hero with a Thousand Faces. It's one story, what he called the monomyth. And he talked about that in the book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And that is the story that's told in the Star Wars series. And so he has an entire set of books that are dealing with that. And that whole piece in regard to that. So when we talk about that, that's what we're talking about there. And I mention all of this because when we talk about the aspect of resonating with an individual, this is where I am in regard to this. Because this is not just telling a story. As I said, Carl Jung was a psychiatrist. And people from all over the world listen to him and still do. His particular psychiatry, if that is the way, I think it's called analytic psychiatry. Analytic psychiatry, I believe. I may be wrong. There's a discussion about that as to his particular way of doing it and that of Sigmund Freud. His is different. His approach is different. His, for me, is more empowering for me. And he looks for that which helps the individual and helps the individual from the standpoint of that there's a reason behind the actions of an individual. And sometimes it is a matter of awareness, helping the individual to come to understand why he or she does what he or she does. And as a result of that, if that particular reason is not serving that person well, then that person has the option to change that behavior, no matter how long they have been doing that behavior. That is empowering. And so, through the telling of a story, a person can then look at themselves without being threatened. And there's an awareness that can come to the individual. That's why a person can find themselves looking at a movie and crying, or looking at a movie and laughing. There's an awareness can come to an individual. That's why in the story that has to do with the emperor's new clothes, that the court jester can laughingly say to the emperor, "You are naked." Riding through the street, you are naked. And the emperor may laugh, but the awareness comes that someone loves me enough to tell me that I'm vulnerable and I'm exposed and I could be in danger and I could be killed. But someone loves me enough to tell me that I'm naked. That's the hero's journey, is that individuals can come to the awareness. A word is in their life that they can change and grow and become who it is that they really are. And so, as I said, this can happen on the inside, from the telling of a story, from the looking at a movie or television program or whatever it may be, or through just going through your practices, whatever it may be. And no longer does a person have to just simply believe the lies that have been told to them or about them. Because if you've been told any other lie, except that you are the most important person or the most important person to yourself and to God in you, then it is less than the truth. You are the apple of God's eye. You are. God dwells in you, and you dwell in God. And God has never left you, never will, never shall. That statement that said that you are a child of God now, notice that statement says now. Doesn't say tomorrow, doesn't say when you get better, when you get nicer, when you get taller. It says now we're children of God. Now. Doesn't matter how much changing that we do now. God is waiting us. We think we're waiting on God. God is waiting on us for awareness to take place within us. Psalms 82 and verse 6 says, "Ye are gods, and all of you are sons of the Most High, are sons and daughters of the Most High." Tennyson said, God is close to us in breathing and nearer than hands and feet. David said in Psalm 56 and verse 2, I believe it is, that this I know, God is for me. God is for me. You can say that. And where did I get that aspect about talking and saying something in advance? Because the text says that the weak say, I am strong. Let the weak say, can you imagine? I am strong. And you keep saying, you keep saying it. I am strong. I am strong. I am strong. And whatever negative there may be in your life, you keep affirming the positive that you want in your life. And keep on saying that. And even if it doesn't exist, the technology that you need to bring about the change in your life will be invented for you, is happening every day. 91-year-old people are having new sight given to them. All kinds of things are happening in this day and time. People born without the ability to hear are having implants put in their heads so that they're able to hear. All kinds of things are possible today for you. That's why somebody can write years ago and say consciousness is the only reality. Somebody delineated the aspect that my uncle, I have an uncle who is still alive, 104 years old, known me all of my life, born in 1917. There was no planes flying. The Wright brothers did not know Kitty Hawk, I believe it's called. That would happen in 1919, I believe. But I just saw a news thing today that said that SpaceX launched 143 satellites today. Consciousness is the only reality. Why not for you? Why not for you? Why not for those you love and those you care about? Why not for you? So that's why this thing moves me today. Why not for you? Why not for those like you? Why not for your friends? And I believe that Spirit has made it possible for anybody, that if they will see, if they've got the courage to see it, and then the courage to be it, then the means is provided. And this is the process to do it. Just what you have already is enough to take you for a journey, a hero's journey, or a heroine's journey. No drugs, just discipline. None, just discipline. You doing, I say, master the mundane, just sitting in a chair, sitting on the floor. Master the mundane, over and over and over again. Stay with it. Do duty until it becomes delight. Don't complain. And one of the things Neville Goddard, he said, there's no one to change but yourself. One individual said so many years ago that, I'm telling the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror that if you want the world to be a better place, take a look in the mirror and make a change. So all of those things come to play. All of them. That's what we're looking at. So I encourage you again to go through this process. info@iwillrestore.com. Encourage others to do it. Got all kinds of things that are planned. We're building a worldwide community. There are people all over the world that are listening to this broadcast, this podcast, downloading it, understanding it, playing it over and over again. We've had people to do it before. We are having people that do it now. We know that they are being blessed by what we're doing. We know that they're making changes. People who a few years ago were making maybe in the tens of thousands of dollars, and they were making $100,000 a year now and looking to make $1 million in a year. That could be you. It could be you. I had one time in my life where I tell people that I had 4 houses and making all kinds of money, all kinds of things. And one day, because I was doing real estate investing, I got a check, and one day I had almost $70,000 for one deal. It just was amazing to me. So all things are possible. All things are possible. All things are possible. I like this process of empowerment because if you'll stay with it, doesn't matter. You could have been somewhere in jail. You could have been somewhere on the corner. You could have been somewhere doing all kinds of things, but it does not matter what your past has been. Does not matter what your precedent has been. If you grasp the principles, you can change your life beginning now. That's what this is about. We will share with you how to do the practices, to understand the policies, to understand the principles, and you will be amazed at your life. It doesn't matter if you've been abused. It doesn't matter what has happened to you in life. It doesn't matter. Any person can make this change who is willing to make it. God bless you. Take care. Dennis L. Waters Sr., info@iwillrestore.com. We're doing some work on the websites, but the websites are iwillrestore.com, drdlwaterssr.com, Real Coach, real-coach.com, and others that we have. Blessings to you. Take care. Bye-bye.